Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining me this morning, and I'd like to recognize, thank you, Melanie, that this topic might be a little bit heavy. Beth and Jill and I were very purposeful in our choice of Story for All Ages, to remember to connect with ourselves and our feelings. And I really appreciate Sarah assisting me online with my slides. I do have quite a few slides, so just bear with me. So my name is Amy Bailey, and I work for My Michigan Health. We're a large health system that covers about 10 hospitals. And my role here has evolved over the years. I started as a social worker, so I spent a lot of time at the bedside, a lot of time with our patients and our families, with our medical teams, with going over the legal document that we're going to talk about today and helping people navigate that. Right now, I work as the Advanced Care Planning Specialist, and I'm also the Ethics Coordinator. So when we have ethical issues or dilemmas in our health system, I help the team navigate that. And Advanced Care Planning is very much intertwined with ethics. And Sarah, if you could proceed to the next slide. There we go. So I'd like folks here to consider a situation, an unexpected situation where you're suddenly finding yourself potentially in the hospital, unable to speak your treatment preferences. And I want you to think about who would you trust to speak those treatment preferences for you, and what would they know what you wanted? And obviously we don't have a crystal ball to navigate every situation that might come up. But advanced care planning is an ongoing conversation, so this means that we continue to talk to those people that we trust to let them know what's important to us. Excuse me. Next slide, please. In our great state of Michigan, we're very unique in our laws. We're one of 4 states that lacks a next of kin law regarding making medical decisions for another adult. Now, these medical decisions may not be an end-of-life decision. It might be a decision when we're in surgery, or a screening colonoscopy, something like that, where we're not anticipated to have a unexpected result, but we just need someone to speak our treatment preferences when we're unable to. We're also one of 3 states that does not honor a living will. So a living will is a document that essentially says, "Dear doctor and medical team, this is what you may or may not do to me in these certain situations." In Michigan, we must have someone to consent for care for you when you're unable to. And only when you're unable to. One of the misconceptions that we have about a document called like a durable power of attorney for health care or patient advocate designation is that once I've created this document, I'm handing over my authority to consent for my own care, and now someone else is going to do that. Our Michigan law does not allow that. Actually, 2 physicians, or a physician and a licensed psychologist, must tell the medical team that you are unable to make a treatment decision. And coming from the hospital side of things, I want my patients making as many decisions as possible. We as a medical team get very uncomfortable when our patients are unable to make decisions and when they have no one available to make them. On average, about 30 to 33% of adults nationwide and statewide have created a legal document that names their patient advocate, and that's what we're really going to hone in on this morning. So as a social worker, it was kind of interesting. My career evolved into also tracking data, and I never thought I was going to be a data person, but I can look at all of our hospitals live every day to know exactly how many patients have a document that are hospitalized and who don't. And on a good day, we might have 25%. So I would like to recognize the fact that as we age, our elders do a lot better job of creating this document. But I've served adults of all ages in our health system who really needed this document. And so again, what that's called is either a durable power of attorney for health care or a patient advocate designation. We're going to go to the next slide. And so some important things to think about for a patient advocate designation is considering what form you'll use. Our state did not give us one specific form. My Michigan Health has created 3 different forms, at least, for this with our attorneys and attorneys in the community. I've also been part of a group statewide. A bunch of us came together from different health systems, and we have a form. I've brought examples of forms and blank forms, so if anybody wants to join me afterwards, I can just walk you through that and help if anyone's interested. Another really important decision that you need to make is who will be your patient advocate. Our state law does not require that a family member act in this role, and actually we've had some experiences in my own family where the closest family member was not the person to make that treatment decision or act in that role. And I also want to point out that don't believe that you have to be a certain age to create this document. One of the members of our population that I'm especially concerned about is single parents who have young adults. Because I've been that social worker at the bedside when our patient, who was a 40-year-old woman, we had to go to her 19-year-old son to make treatment decisions. And so I get really protective of our young adults, and I just want people to think about who would best act as your patient advocate. And that can change. These documents don't expire, but you can change them at any time. And I hope that you do review them and look at them, because another scenario that worries me is I'll get that document that was made in 1989, 1990. My patient is an elder, their patient advocate is their spouse who's deceased. And then we're having to look at things like legal guardianship, which we really don't want to do that. I know things are getting kind of heavy here. I think people should kind of touch base with how we're feeling. And so I'll have us go to the next slide. Also to remind you, make sure you have a backup plan. My job as a social worker has always evolved around worst case scenarios on a daily basis. So when you make a backup plan of who your successor patient advocate is, I really appreciate it. There's a word of caution when you're selecting your patient advocate designation, and I'd like to apologize that the contrast on that slide's not very good. I'll also preface this with, and I already shared this with Melanie. So part of my job is evaluating these documents when they come in, and like last year, we had over 6,000 documents submitted. So I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And there are some people that do these documents very well and some that don't. So just because, and forgive me for anyone who's an attorney out there, just because an attorney created the document does not mean that they know the law well and that it's a valid legal document. So just beware. Some people are specialized in different forms of law, and I respect that. But patient advocate designation law is very, very specific. And us here at the health system, we use these documents. We're the end user every day. And so it's really important that you have a document that is actually following state law. So I put some examples of documents up there. And it's just a reminder to, reach out if you're curious if your document is valid or not. Happy to take a look. We'll go to the next slide. And so as a patient advocate designation, what it does is it names who your patient advocate is and what authority they have. It is not a living will. So just because you say, I do not want to be resuscitated in your patient advocate designation, that is not a medical order. That will not be followed by the medical team. It says, hey, this is who my patient advocate is. My patient advocate, his name is William. He lives in Colorado. He has specific authority to make decisions for me. It could be consenting, withdrawing, refusing care. It could be an organ donation. And Jim approached me earlier, I'm not going to pick on you, but because when we talked about organ donation, that means they can make a choice about it. Sometimes people like to donate their entire body for science or research. If you're wanting to do that, the patient advocate designation does not cover that piece. You must identify where you want your body to be donated to, get their application, apply, and be accepted in order for that to happen. The hospital cannot help you with that. So, and also, you might want to include in your patient advocate designation if your patient advocate has the authority to make mental health treatment decisions, because that is a totally different law in Michigan. But that can be included in your patient advocate designation. And I've got a really good form for that here that provides more content than the standard form. Also, I want to remind you that only you can make your own patient advocate designation. There are times in the hospital when we have well-meaning family members come to us and say, oh, okay, I realize my mom doesn't have one. We're going to go to the attorney and create one. No, you are not. You are not doing that. And in fact, it brings to mind that a recent email that I got from the Attorney General's office made a statement that individuals and their family are able to create this document. That's actually not accurate. Only you can create your document or make any changes. No one can add a patient advocate to your document. We've had that question as well. The patient advocate cannot delegate their authority to someone else. So it's just really important to know that you hold all the power. And I think that's really important because sometimes life feels really out of control, and this is one of the things that we can control, is who we trust to make our treatment decisions. Can we go to the next slide? So choosing your patient advocate, I would hope that it goes without saying that they must be at least age 18 or older, but we have had some people want to name a minor child as their patient advocate. We've also had a local attorney, not in our county, but a different county, who actually named that minor and acknowledged that they were a minor. So I know I'm uncomfortable with that. Melanie and I are cringing here. So, and that person that you name, they might, at the time that you create the document, they might accept that role, but please know that at some time in the future, they might have to say, you know what, I just can't do that. That happened with my dad and my stepmom. He got to a certain age where he said, you know what, she's named me as her patient advocate, and I'm glad that there's successor advocates because I just can't do this role anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. I think what happens a lot, though, is that people create these documents and they squirrel them away in a locked file cabinet, and the patient advocate doesn't even know that they were chosen. And I'm the messenger sometimes at the hospital that they were chosen. So that's a fun thing to navigate. But so it's really important that your patient advocate has their own copy of your document. And actually, it makes an excellent guide for reviewing what you want and what's important to you. And I know that Kathy brought that up in Joys and Sorrows, and I'm so glad she did, because the act of creating this document and having the conversation is like a practice run for when you might have to step in that role and work with the medical team with your loved one if you've been named that patient advocate. So there's actually some journal articles about that, and I thought that was really neat. Important with this document, you must have it witnessed by at least 2 individuals. They cannot be your patient advocate, close family members, anybody who works at the hospital. And so I'm looking at a bunch of witnesses in this room. I'm really excited for anybody who wants to create their patient advocate designation right now. I'm really hopeful, again, that people will join me a little bit later on that. We'll go to the next slide. All right. So this again went over a little bit more about what you might want your patient advocate to be able to do. They can also hire and fire a medical team, and what that might look like is, let's say, somebody at My Michigan, the physician there gives you a certain diagnosis and prognosis, and you're like, well, you know what, that's fine, but I want to get a second opinion. And so that might mean that we transfer you to Henry Ford. Your patient advocate would have the authority to do that, and I think that's really important. Next slide. Again, thinking about when your patient advocate is able to act in that role, it's only a time when you're unable to make those treatment decisions. And capacity can wax and wane. And so you might, for a period of time, be without the ability to make your treatment decisions, but then you regain your ability, and that determination can be revoked. Next slide. So you've created your document. Now what do? You keep the original. I have mailed back several original documents to our community members, so please keep your original. This does not need to be filed with the courthouse. That's another question, that they don't want it. They have enough documents that they have to keep track of. Make sure that you have a copy of your patient advocate designation given to your patient advocate, any successor advocates, anybody in your circle of support. It's really important. I actually scanned mine into an email and sent it to my patient advocates, so they have it right on their phone. Digital copies are accepted too. Make sure you talk to your patient advocate about your health and about what's important to you. And probably about quarterly, my poor brother will get some random phone call from me because maybe it's been a tough month, and some certain situations have occurred to our patients in our health system, and I say, now remember what we talked about, and I'll lay it out, very specifics. And he summed it up pretty nicely for me one day, because he is the man of great one-liners. He said, so what you're telling me is you're here for a good time, not a long time. So I guess he got it. Anyways, it's good that you share it with your provider. If you come to My Michigan, we keep it on file for you. We can see it quite quickly and easily. Don't assume that if you've given it to us that Michigan Medicine has it, though. I know we've got the gold block M on all of our signage. And as a Spartan, it kind of burns through my skin every time I have to wear my name tag, but those are different health systems, and so that's important to know. So if you see a specialist in Covenant, make sure Covenant has a copy. If you go up to Munson, make sure Munson has a copy. If you're traveling, make sure you have a copy. You might be up having a great time somewhere in the UP, and you unfortunately have a medical emergency. Having that document on file is really important, and having it handy. Like, I keep things in the glove box of my Jeep, so I think that's really important. And then also, please review your document often. A lot of times when life events happen to us, it's a good time to review it. They call it the 5 Ds. I'll go over some of them, but like if there's a death in your family, divorce, you change your domicile, meaning you move, it's a good idea to review your document. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So talking with your patient advocate, this might feel like a really uncomfortable conversation. And so I'm probably not the best person at times to guide you, because I talk about this every day. But I think starting out with just sharing with them, this is what's going on with me right now. Let's sit down and take a look at my document. This might inspire them to create their own documents. A really popular question that I get from young to middle-aged adults is, gosh, my parents really need this document. And of course, I'm thinking in my head, well, you're over the age 18, you need this document too. Well, how do I get my parents to do this? And I said, well, I have a great idea. So you're going to take your completed document and you're going to just say, hey, Mom, I want to come and have a cup of coffee with you and I want to show you something really important. And bring a blank form and go over your document, because then you can show this isn't scary. This may never, ever be used in your lifetime. Or it might be used a couple of times when you just can't make a treatment decision. So I think that that's really important. Also, I think that at some point in our life, and this is going to get kind of heavy, there's going to be a time when certain treatment decisions may not serve us very well. They might cause more harm than good. And so we're going to go to the next slide, because I just want to provide some clarity. We have a lot of patients who believe that when they come and get treatment with us in the hospital, and let's say they've chosen not to receive life-saving measures like CPR, they've made that choice in the hospital, they've talked with their medical team, they discharge home, that means they get to go home. They think that what we call code status, follows them around in the community. It does not. So if there is ever a time when you feel that CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, would not serve you well, you can get a special order, and it's for do not provide CPR or do not resuscitate in the community. And I'm happy to talk about that too. We're trying to be more proactive in these types of discussions. Because a lot of times people feel that, well, of course no one will resuscitate me. Well, we have to have a medical order that tells us not to. And so that is the end of this slideshow. I also see what time it is, and I know that we need to stay timely here. Happy to answer any questions. I'll be upstairs is where I'll be in the library. If anyone wants to join me, and I really appreciate you guys sitting through this. I hope this was helpful, and I'm really proud to be part of a fellowship who really strongly values this. So thank you so much.